Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a fantastic day. It seems as though the dust might be starting to settle on this 2022 CDL Vanguard season. The first major is in the books. We have had online matches, we've had on land matches, and with all of that coming to a close, I think teams are starting to understand where exactly they fall in the grand scheme of things. So there are some squads that are performing way better than they probably anticipated, and there are some that aren't quite sure what to do moving forward. I think there has been a trend over the last couple years that the teams that sit back and do nothing usually don't end up experiencing a ton of success. It's not like it just magically starts to happen for them. So the teams in Black Ops Cold War and during the MW season that went out, made a roster move, brought in some young talent from the challenger scene, those were the squads that were able to make some noise last year, especially heading into like Major 5 and towards Champs. That's what we're starting to see now. It seems as though teams don't want to wait as long. If they're not performing, let's go ahead, let's shake things up, and let's see what happens. So today we're going to talk about the 3 or 4 rosters that are going through some roster changes. Could be roster changes, could be role changes, but as we go ahead and look at this graphic, these are the standings overall as it sits right now. And a lot of these teams down towards the bottom. So if you're Paris, you had a little bit of a nice moment at that first major when they were able to get their first victory. NYSL, things are up in the air. There's a couple other squads here, but let's go ahead and let's start with one that I think is super interesting, and that's the Minnesota Rocker. So they're not making a role change, or they're not making a roster change, but they are making a role change. So this has been talked about for the last week or so. For those of you that don't know, I do a podcast every Tuesday night for the Minnesota Rocker. I do it alongside Kingdom Soldier and, of course, Midnight, who's the director of content there. And we've been talking about this for a couple weeks now. Now, I'm not quite sold on this idea, and I'll show you why in a second, but the overwhelming thought here is that Attach would switch to the flex role and Priesta would move over to the SMG. This is one of those rosters that does have the luxury to do that, just because Attach, obviously super talented, could go either way. Same thing with Priesta. We have seen him absolutely shred in the past on an SMG, so he's really a valuable asset to have as a part of that organization overall. But the only reason why I was a little bit hesitant is because if you look at the way Attach has been playing this year, most notably at their last matches on LAN, this is the 3-0 that they had on LAN against LAG in the first round of the losers bracket. And yeah, everybody played well, but Attach put up a 1.36. He was positive 17 in 3 maps, and he was absolutely the one that led them in this series overall. And then if you look at the next series against LA Thieves that they lost, it was 3-1, but look at what happened here. So Priesta negative 16, Standy was negative 15, and Attach played super well. Attach dropped a 1.23, the only one on his team that really showed up to play in this matchup. So this is just my overwhelming point of view, is that if he's one that's playing best for you and you want to move his role, well, if that somehow makes him worse and Priesta's not ready to run an SMG in this game because he really hasn't been doing it all that much, I don't know if the risk is worth the reward. I think if they were to just give it a little bit more time, things would iron out. And then if you get into Major 2, Major 3, and it's still not working, okay, go ahead and make a move. But either or, we're starting with the Minnesota Rocker with a little bit of a role swap here. After that, we have the Paris Legion that are saying goodbye to Fellow, and this isn't all that much of a surprise, right? They've already made one roster move with Decimate stepping back and Tom Gravity coming in, and it seemed like that paid off a little bit at that first major as they were able to pick up a victory in the losers bracket. I'm not quite sure that this move overall takes Paris and makes them a top 6 squad, but I do not fault them for making moves. I think if you sit still, you're going to get the same exact results that you've gotten the last couple years. And obviously, if you're in this league, that is not what your plan is. So Fellow does take a step back. And the rumor at this point in time is that Jimbo might be the one that is replacing him. Jimbo is one of those top AMs that it seems like is long overdue for a chance to play in the CDL, but he has been spotted, and you kind of take this for what it's worth, I guess. He's been spotted in ranked play, playing alongside Gravity and John and Paris's assistant coach, Apox. So who knows if there's anything to this? It could be totally, irrelevant. Maybe they're just in a lobby, but normally where there's smoke on issues like this, there's also fire. So I would expect Jimbo to get that spot. And with the way Temp has been playing, I think it can make them even just a little bit better. Now, John is the question mark there because even at the end of last year when he was playing with 100 Thieves in Champs, he had, I think it was like a 0.59 in their Champs series. I was pretty surprised to see him get a roster spot coming into this year, but who knows? Maybe they can have some synergy there and start to play well together. But I like the fact that they are going through and making moves. And just in case you're totally unfamiliar, not quite sure, Jimbo has been playing the last few weeks here in the amateur scene. So these results at, the stage 2 qualifier, 5th, 6th, and they might not be the best, but when he was playing really well, he was playing alongside Gravity and Paul X and Venom. So this is that Wester squad from early on in the Black Ops Cold War season a year ago that was absolutely shredding everything. So Jimbo wasn't a part of that initially, but that's who he's been playing with as of late. And either way, I think that he has earned his spot, and we'll see what happens here over the next few weeks, maybe the next major, and see if Paris can turn things around a little bit. Not so much a roster change, but a little bit of a fill-in here. So Paul X will be going back to London. I think he signed a 2-week contract, I think I saw. So Gizmo is going to take some time off. Don't really know what's going on there. It says personal reasons, so maybe he's just got some stuff to deal with, whether it's at home, who knows? We don't want to speculate, but either or, I trust that, it sounds like he'll be back in a couple weeks and they'll be ready to go for Major 2. Obviously, London is probably the biggest surprise of the year so far. So I think Paul X will fit in there nicely. He had a pretty good year last year. This is an organization that he's familiar with. So we'll see what happens here for the London Royal Ravens. But either way, this is a really great story. I'm excited to see what they do moving forward. And then last but not least, now this is an interesting one. So Crim6 had mentioned that he had surgery on his eardrum immediately after that first major was over with. And there, again, where there's smoke, sometimes usually there's fire. But it says, so this is from CDL Intel, it says Crim6's surgery went well. Looks like he'll continue to play. But something to note is that Decimate has replaced Neptune on that Challenger squad. So alongside DiamondCon, Prolude, and Spart. And there could be a chance that Neptune returns to the starting lineup for subliners, but nothing's confirmed. So there have been a couple tweets, and we've seen this in the COD competitive subreddit a little bit, about the return of Neptune. And to me personally, I think that would be an incredible move. Now, who they end up replacing, that's the biggest question mark. But if Crim6 is hurt, maybe... Whoops. But if Crim6 is hurt, then maybe he's the one that gets replaced. And if so, I don't necessarily think it matters too much if it's Crim or it's Clay. But I think if you take Royalty and Hydra and you add Neptune to that, and then you just have one kind of main Slayer AR, Anchor AR type player, I think that would go a pretty long way for turning that NYSL squad around. Now, would they have chemistry? Would they play well together? Those are all the question marks that exist out there, because ultimately you can have 4 of the most talented players, and who knows if it ends up working out. But overall, you kind of look at where NYSL is at, and if they bring Neptune back, I think he might have gotten a little bit of a raw deal there. Last year with Florida, we saw him be a really good player. I think Florida would probably be even better if they still had Neptune and just kept their roster from last year, but that's a point for a different video. But either or, I would like to see Neptune get a little bit more of a chance, because I do think that he's a really good player, a really fast player, somebody that in a game like this can push the pace. And if they just had some more quality pieces around him, I think that would work out overall. So just to kind of go back and sum this all up, if we look at the rosters that are making moves, NYSL and Paris, they have to do something. But really, if you look at like where Boston's at, they're only 30 points behind where Boston's at to get to the top 6. So yeah, it might be a little bit early, but it's not like they're clear and out of this and they can't come back like the season's over. It's still super early, and there's a lot of people that don't have a ton of points. When it comes to Minnesota, I think this role swap might be a move to, I don't think it's necessarily immediately going to improve them, but what it could potentially do is it could raise their ceiling. So currently where their ceiling's at, if they didn't make a move, maybe it's somewhere in that 5th, 6th, maybe 4th range. Maybe they get lucky. They go on a spree when it comes to S&D and some majors, and they win a major that way. But if they make this swap and Priesthood gets used to running an SMG, obviously Attach, I feel like Attach can shred from everywhere. Maybe this is something that gets them to the top 3, top 2, gets them competing for tournaments, major in and major out. So overall, and the last thing that I'll mention here is London. London's up here sitting pretty in 3rd with 80 CDL points. So if it's 2 weeks that Gizmo is going to be out, I think that they'll be fine because that squad is so talented. But if not, maybe LA Thieves gains 10 or 20 points on them. But either way, I don't think it's going to hurt them all that much. So they should be in an okay place also. So a whole lot to talk about today. There's a lot of roster changes, roster mania going on. This is a good time for it because it's the end of the first major. We'll see where these teams end up playing out, where they end up being at the end of the next few weeks here. So comments down below. I love interacting with you guys, seeing what you guys have to say. So make sure you go ahead and put them down there. Leave a like. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. All that stuff helps out the channel. So thank you guys so much. We will see you in the next upload.